You will feel like a stranger when you open that letter from your future self. You might wonder who wrote it, or if they even know who you are right now. But there is a reason for this deep mismatch. By the end of this conversation, you will understand why the person you become often feels like someone else entirely. The feeling is jarring. It's not just nostalgia. It's a true disconnect from your own life story. You look back and think, who was I? What did I believe? The gap between who you are now and who you will be later can feel overwhelming, even scary. This kind of change matters because it tells you something vital about what you need to let go of in the present. If you do not understand this shift, you might fight against a natural process that was meant to help you grow. The first barrier is simply habit. You think your identity is built on solid things: your job, your friends, the routines you keep. But everything we cling to eventually shifts. Think of an old photograph album. When you open it years later, the faces are familiar, but the clothes, the hairstyles, and even the emotions in the pictures feel foreign. That slight feeling of looking at a stranger is exactly what happens when time does its work on you. It forces an overhaul of who you thought you were. But that initial resistance to change often makes us afraid of anything new. What if that fear actually keeps us trapped in places we have already outgrown? The second shift involves your emotional vocabulary. As you age, you stop using the same words for feeling. The colors you assign to joy and sadness deepen and broaden. Maybe what felt like deep heartbreak at 20 now registers as a quiet ache of understanding. This means the lens through which you process life changes completely. It is like learning a new language, but instead of grammar rules, you are changing your emotional framework. You realize that intense passion used to define you, it was only temporary. Now you find more value in simple stability and quiet contentment. There was one thing this process missed: the necessary loss of belief. The greatest change is often what we lose faith in. We stop believing in the promises we made to ourselves, promises about how hard things should be or who we should become. For example, you might have believed that success meant a specific title, or that love required constant drama. When life shows you a gentler path, one where quiet effort works better than grand gestures, you must let go of those old stories. This letting go feels like grief. It is the funeral for your former self's ambition. But this death clears space for something real to take root. And this brings us to the most confusing part of all. The hardest thing to accept is that the person staring back at you in the mirror someday will not be a perfect reflection. That future self may seem cynical, or perhaps unnaturally calm. This isn't failure. It is deep internal work finally settling into place. Your future self knows things you do not know yet. They have navigated the disasters and found peace on the other side. They carry the scars with a different meaning, not as marks of pain, but as evidence of survival. When they look at you now, they are seeing potential. But understanding this shift means accepting that your best version is not something you can force into existence today. It unfolds naturally, like a seed cracking open its shell. It's the quiet acceptance of imperfection that changes everything. The knowledge that life is messy and cyclical. That survival itself is enough. You don't need to fight the person you are becoming. You only need to be curious about them. This journey of self-discovery isn't a destination you arrive at after an enormous struggle. It's simply the steady rhythm of deciding what matters enough to keep showing up for. It is realizing that the you who exists today, the one grappling with uncertainty, the one filled with ambition and doubt, is not flawed. They are merely provisional. They are the draft version necessary for the final edit. The gap between who you are now and who you might be isn't a chasm to be bridged by sheer willpower. It's a spectrum of possibility governed by small, consistent choices. It is choosing vulnerability over armor, curiosity over judgment, and patience over immediate gratification. These micro-decisions accumulate into the gravitational pull that redraws your internal map. And this leads us back, perhaps unexpectedly, to what we were discussing at the very start, the feeling of difference. That uncanny sensation when you meet someone and feel an instant, inexplicable resonance, as if they know a version of yourself you haven't fully met yet. That recognition isn't magic, it's merely accurate data reading. You are recognizing patterns that have been building within yourself all along, patterns that speak to a person who has already done the internal work, the quiet, invisible labor of healing and evolving. Your future self doesn't appear polished and finished. They don't materialize fully formed on a mountaintop. Instead, they whisper gently from moments of deep rest, from unexpected acts of kindness, or when you finally allow yourself to simply be without the weight of expectation. They are always right here, woven into the fabric of your present reality, waiting for you to notice them, waiting for you to trust the process. The biggest breakthrough is understanding that this self-evolution is not a linear ascent. It's a spiral, constantly circling back to familiar themes, but each time arriving from a slightly higher altitude. It's learning how to welcome both the spectacular leaps and the gentle stumbles as necessary parts of the same continuous poem. So let go of the pressure to explain the why, just accept the becoming. Be messy with your potential, and trust that the person you are destined to be is already rooting for you, cheering quietly from the other side.